This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
Well, it's great to be back in the studio after the Easter long weekend. Hope on behalf of our team or even our household to yours that you had a restful and relaxing time, unless you were looking for the exact opposite, in which case I hope you had an absolute banger. The producer of this show, I hope you don't mind me pointing out, Johnny Infamous, you dastardly handsome bastard, you handsome fella, took the opportunity to basically reinvent your image, and you present a whole new fresh look today. What's shaking, pal?
Blondes have more fun. That's what they say,
yeah,
right?
I love it. It looks really good on you.
It's a little pizzazz for the playoffs, a little extra support for the boys. You know, some guys grow beards. I already have a beard. I don't want to get it any bigger. So, yeah. I'm a blonde guy now, and I lost half my intelligence. No, just kidding. Blondes out there, you're smart.
Yeah, you do. Well, I'm looking forward to having more fun with you.
Okay.
In the days, weeks, and months to come. I think. Have you gone blonde before? It looks. It suits
when
you.
I was like 18 or something, maybe, but like box dye. This was like
probably
salon.
We used to use when we were like 11 years old. My brother and I would spray in this product called Sun In.
Oh, of course, I love the Sun In.
You
get
would
the
like
frosted
take
tips.
it on and get frosted tips.
No, this was. I will never financially recover from this.
But some new accoutrements as well. I see a couple piercings, a few piercings.
I got my ears pierced, and I got my nose pierced. Am I having a midlife crisis? I don't know. I'm having one last stint of being young and cool. Did you buy a Tesla? No, I didn't.
You went in and you said, give me like the reinvention package. It comes with like 3 piercings, a hair dye.
I'm trying to have a hot boy summer. Leave me alone.
I love it. I can't wait for it. We might have to get a sunroof in our studio so we can open it up.
It's going to be hell to keep up. I'm just going to, hopefully I don't have to do it every round of the playoffs here, but I don't know. You saw the game last night. It's going to be a rough road for the Oilers.
Unbelievable. Yeah. This show, I'm looking forward to hitting the ground running in just a quick second with Vicky Mochama. So basically, here's the deal. Like the federal leaders debate in English goes Thursday, and we're signed off. So aside from hanging out with our Real Talk patrons at a party, which we'll talk to you about later, we haven't had a chance to check in and just chat about it. And then a whole bunch of stuff has happened over the weekend. So Vicky, the host of one of Canada's newest and already most popular political podcasts, Party All the Time, joining us every Tuesday through the election campaign. To tee this up real quick, Alberta's former Deputy Premier Thomas Lukaszuk, no fan of Danielle Smith, really never has been, but he's ramping that up over the weekend, letting everybody know by way of his account on X, his Twitter account, that he's filing complaints with the Law Society aimed at the Justice Minister, aimed at another lawyer around healthcare procurement. So we're going to find out what the deal is with that. And then, by the way, and you know what I hate? And I'm the one to blame. You know what I hate about what I just did? I left.
What?
Oh, and by the way, the Pope passed away as well.
Yeah, so much happened while we were.
But I left the fact that it's Earth Day right to the very end of my opening preamble here. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's a metaphor for how the environment, climate has been treated by the campaigns. I don't know. Maybe I'm searching too deeply for meaning.
It's a metaphor.
Or is it a simile, bro? But either way, 2 phenomenal researchers, Dr. Srijak Bhatnagar from Athabasca University and Dr. Adriana Morrell from Lethbridge Polytechnic are going to talk to us about what they're doing when it comes to restoring the prairies, rehabbing the prairies. We talk a lot about coal mining and obviously the toll that industry obviously takes on the geography, and so we're going to find out about how the earth is being protected, restored, and of course looking forward what policy might look like on this special edition of the show. We're going to get to Vicky in 30 seconds. First, I want to let you know this episode happens with the presenting sponsorship of Alberta's top online real estate school. You can find them online at relo.ca, where better real estate training starts. That's RELO.ca. Online learning, real estate learning for the bold and ambitious. And no matter where you're at in your career, they're going to help you find the next level. Maybe you're watching realtors, friends of yours, unlimited earning potential. Boy, they can have some big months. And of course, the markets looking phenomenal right now across the province of Alberta. To qualify to get your real estate license, you need to take a couple of pre-licensing courses, a fundamentals and a practical course. So they're going to get you all set up for success. And you can do it in economical fashion as well. Protect your bottom line. They've got commercial and residential real estate bundles. And when you sign up for either of those, the promo code Ryan100, all one word, Ryan100, will knock $100 off each of them when you get started today at Relo.ca.
We got so much to talk about. I early voted on Friday, too.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, in just a second, we'll grill you about who you voted for and why.
Please don't.
But first, she's the host of Party All the Time, which you can find anywhere you get your podcast. Vicky Mochama hanging out with us every Tuesday through the campaign. Nice to see your smiling face, my friend. How was your long extended weekend?
It was not restful.
No.
I partied for 4 days straight.
Well, you're the host of Party All the Time. You're almost obligated to do so.
You got to live up to the brand name. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be glib about the Pope passing away, by the way. I myself am not a practicing Catholic, but obviously it's a pretty huge story globally when that happens. Any thoughts on the legacy or maybe the transition or maybe the positions that Pope Francis took? He wasn't afraid to speak his mind.
No, he was interesting. He's like a super progressive pope, really pushing the papacy forward on things like, here in Canada, Indigenous reconciliation, taking seriously the calls to action and making sure that the papacy and the Roman Catholic Church did something, not nothing, and to step back from the kind of denialism that the church had been participating in for so long. And it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to go. I was talking to my parents about this, and I was saying it's kind of fascinating. We didn't think we'd see a papal election. Like, of all the elections that are happening over these last 2 years, a papal election was not really on the cards. I mean, he's older, but it wasn't there. But this might be kind of a bellwether test for like the politics of the Roman Catholic Church as it stands. Do they kind of continue in the direction that Pope Francis set them down, or do they kind of draw back some of those things and go for a more conservative approach? Or do we see some of the same trends that we're seeing elsewhere in Europe apply themselves inside the Catholic Church? So I feel for Catholics at this time who are obviously hugely mourning, but I'm interested in the politics of it that's going to go down. The conclave is going to be a fascinating one to watch. And I'm thrilled for all the Rome reporters who I've been following for years because I love going to Italy, as you guys know. And I'm interested to see how they cover it. I'm so fascinated.
Yeah, you're just back. You've been back from Italy for like a week or something like that, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not JD Vance. I didn't do it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are reading into that. JD Vance met with the Pope like 24 hours before his passing. I've seen a lot of Antichrist tweets out there. A lot of people are saying that this is the proof. I also saw a note, by the way, that sitting popes also passed away. Did you see this statistic? Sitting popes also passed away in 1914 and 1939. Which kicked off what you might call pretty significant conflicts around the world. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But
I feel you. I tend to get very biblical at times like this. And I was telling some folks about it was the planetary alignment, Kumbh Mela, that a lot of sort of Indian religions celebrate earlier this year. And now we've got a papal death and papal election. It feels like 2025 does not feel like a small year. It feels very significant. Every year has felt big, but this one feels like, okay, it's time to write down your journal every single day what's been happening.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been obviously a few days and since that federal leaders debate, and we've had a chance for the dust to settle. People have, everyday Canadians have had a chance to kind of sink their teeth into costed platforms. The Polytechnic camp now going at Carney now that we've seen the Liberal spending plan. He's basically saying not only is he Justin 2.0, he's more expensive than Justin Trudeau was. What's one of the key stories that you're keeping an eye on as we head into the final days? I mean, Canadians the majority of them vote 6 days from when we're recording this.
Well, I'm curious about what Conservative Party messaging will do or evolve into or has been evolving into over these next couple of days, because it does seem that the polls aren't indicating a major shift. The debate, I mean, I watched both of them and I genuinely do not recall that event. It's like a blank space in my mind. So it would not be surprising to me if that's how they sat for other people as well. But, I'm really interested in that they're still continuing to point the finger at Justin Trudeau, talking about the lost Liberal decade or kind of transferring that onto the question of what happens if you elect another Liberal government. But it doesn't seem like voters are necessarily attaching the Trudeau brand identity to Mark Carney. They worked together, certainly, but it doesn't necessarily seem to me that particular messaging is highly resonating. A thing I am watching is the presence or absence of Justin Trudeau on the campaign trail. He's a great campaigner, very popular among the people who like him, but we really haven't seen him. Meanwhile, the Conservatives have been quite enthusiastic about pulling out Stephen Harper and other kind of senior Conservative Party figures to remind people like, hey, these are the Conservatives you get when you vote for a Conservative government. So the presence and absence of the former prime ministers is really interesting to me, because that's kind of a end of the campaign trail move. And whether we see Justin Trudeau again or not will be fascinating.
Yeah, interesting to see that Stephen Harper ad there, and I've seen Sun News is like jumping on it. Obviously, talking. The key point kind of that Harper makes there. He says, "Listen, both these guys have worked for me." Of course, he appointed Mark Carney as governor of the Bank of Canada, and obviously Poilievre, a cabinet minister when Harper was PM. He says, "My choice, unequivocally, without hesitation, Pierre Poilievre." How strongly do you think an endorsement like that resonate? I mean, it strikes me. Put it this way, I guess, in plain language, if you're a big Stephen Harper fan, you're already voting for Pierre Poilievre. Does it move the needle with the undecideds? Is it going to convince maybe any of the soft Liberals or the temporary Liberals to maybe make a swing with their vote at the last minute?
Yeah, I think there's something to, the Silver Fox agenda. There's a cohort of older men that the Conservatives are aiming for, who maybe are on the fence, who have been finding Mark Carney's approach appealing on the campaign trail and are interested in his kind of senior leadership, and they don't necessarily want to see Pierre Poilievre. The two ads that the Conservative Party rolled out over the weekend don't feature the leader. You don't see him in it. You see two guys in one. You see two guys playing golf, talking about what they're going to do in terms of voting, and then in the other is Stephen Harper doing a direct appeal to camera, like he's Tom Cruise at the beginning of Top Gun, saying like, "Hey, I'm still here." And so I think that's sort of an interesting set of messaging aiming at this particular demographic, trying to get them to move closer to the party, because it suggests that the party understands that maybe they've moved away from the party, or that Mark Carney has shifted their thinking. And so it's going to be fascinating whether those particular pitches work. It doesn't necessarily suggest that the kind of inroads the Conservative Party has been trying to make among young people, among ethnic minority communities in various suburbs across the country, that's not, they're not going after those demographics with these particular ads. And so I wonder what has shifted for the party.
Yeah, interesting. Les in our live chat, powered by Park Power, checking in, says, people have to remember, most folks don't follow politics on social media. They follow the news. They vote on family tradition and coffee talk. Gilles says the most vocal base of the Conservatives right now is young men, but the recent advertising is taking aim at seniors. He says, "Who the hell is running their comms?" Here's the ad for people that haven't seen it. Two buddies on the driving range. Check it out.
How's your son David?
Well, it's been a tough few years for him. He just can't seem to get ahead.
Yeah, we had to pay for Sarah's down payment last year. Things are tough for her too.
You know what Mark Carney says.
Come on, do you really think that a fourth Liberal term is going to change anything?
I've been thinking the same thing.
Are we really going to give these clowns a fourth term? I'm voting Conservative. There you go.
Yeah, for a change.
All right, so there you go. For a change, vote Conservative. I guess you just kind of give some insight into exactly who they're targeting over the final week of the campaign.
Yeah, it's an older demographic. That appeal that they have to young, especially young men, among the party, that's nowhere to be found. Not necessarily, actually. And let me take that back. They echo the messaging that appeals to young males and some young women, which is, having a hard time getting ahead and talking about the kind of parental figures who have to sort of step in or watch as their young people struggle. That is echoed in there, but it's very clear that the people that they're trying to get to the ballot box is an older demographic.
Yeah, and I mean, it is like on one hand, what they're saying reflects what a lot of conversations probably sound like, and not just on the golf course, not just on the driving range. We're getting a lot of comments here in the live chat right now, people pointing out not everyone can afford to golf, et cetera, et cetera. Kyle here says you don't focus your get out the vote efforts on people you already know are going to turn out, which is also true. I've seen some critics of the ad pointing out that it's like just, two guys complaining that they had to help their families. But I think that, but I think the general premise of it is true, which is, and I think, we would be wrong to snicker at the assertion that a lot of people feel like they can't get ahead because they can't. The question right now is really who are Canadians going to, in resounding fashion or otherwise, with a minority government, hand the keys to the office to? Who do they think can make life a little bit easier? That lost Liberal decade, that 10-year theme that Pierre Poilievre hammered on through the debate, and I thought he did all right in the debate. I thought Mark Carney missed some really big opportunities. I don't think anybody really blew it. But I mean, obviously they're trying to turn the ballot box question, right? There's no talk about Trump anywhere. You got to wonder what this next week's going to look like. Something out of the Oval Office. Can we both agree? Something wild out of the Oval Office would do a huge favor to Mark
Week
Carney,
2.0
right?
might be coming right at us. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think something might come out of the Oval Office this week. Trump is upset in a number of directions, especially when it comes to the Fed chair. And the markets are responding to that. And so we'll see what kind of actions they take there. And those are writ large, big actions that affect everybody. When the American stock market takes a major dip, loses 1,000 points on a Monday, that impacts Canadians' baseline. And for that demographic that we're talking about that has things like investments, they are looking for a money manager. They are looking for somebody who understands the economy. They are looking for somebody who can kind of appeal to their concerns. As to the point of like, not everybody can afford to golf. They're not talking about, bread and butter issues in that ad. They're not talking about the grocery. They're talking about big things like helping somebody get a down payment. They're talking about, financial transfers, that are generational. And so that does matter to this particular cohort. And that's a sizable portion of this country. Many Canadians don't often want to talk about it, but it's one of the West's largest intergenerational wealth transfers is going to be from baby boomers to the next generation or the generation right after. It's a vast amount of money that, shapes people's political concerns.
Sean says, I've never seen a Canadian political ad that called a party clowns. He said, is that more name calling? That actually jumped out at me when the guy says, what does he say? You're not actually going to give those clowns another term? I laughed out loud when I heard it because that's how I talk to my friends. And like candidly, I don't know that I've called any political party clowns on the air, maybe if they've earned it. But I thought that was interesting. Giants for Life says the guy's on the driving range swinging a $600 driver. I think he's doing okay. Giants for Life hasn't gone golf shopping lately. Drivers are now like $900. It's absolutely bonkers. Golf drivers are like $900 now, but I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to use my own. I'm being prudent. See, I'm being fiscally responsible. I'll use my one from a few years ago. Plus, Johnny gives me excuses on why I'm always slicing, right? Just doesn't have the whip it used to have. Vicky, I absolutely loved your episode that was out on Friday, the Diaspora Votes. Fascinating insights into the 905 and who is going to win or who could win Toronto and why. Amazing insights into Canada's Indian population, Sikh population, and others. What can we expect from your next episode coming up this coming Friday?
Oh, we're talking about the big one, foreign policy. We've got Doug Saunders from the Globe and Mail, Erica Barudis, as you guys know, from the Discourse Pod, and Canadian press reporter Dylan Robertson, who does all sorts of foreign affairs issues for the Canadian press. And we're talking about the one that's on everyone's mind, Canada's foreign policy with the United States specifically and especially. I don't think we could have gone a whole season without really addressing it. It is the thing that has substantially reshaped the political discourse in this country. It has awakened Canadians. People are voting with their plane tickets, with their cruises. They are deciding about America in real time, and they are deciding about America through this election as well. So we're getting into it.
Awesome. Folks can find Party All the Time, hosted by our good friend Vicky Mochama on obviously Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcasts. Plus, you can check out the visual episodes on the Real Talk YouTube channel. Catch Vicky every Tuesday right here on the show. We'll talk to you in a week, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for doing this. In the live chat, How about this one from Lauren, who says, my car is $900 and I'm the driver. Well played, Lauren. Cliff says, Mark Carney campaigning on Poilievre lying about abortion was a terrible look, in my opinion. Cliff says, and he doubled down on it, even though Poilievre has unequivocally said that opening that door is off the table. Ken says that the Conservatives dropped their costed platform just a short time ago. You can check it out on their website, conservative.ca. Says they're promising a taxpayer protection act to ban new or higher federal taxes without asking taxpayers first in a referendum. You saw that they also promised to repeal plastic bag, plastic straw bans. They said they'll give consumers and entrepreneurs, business owners the choice on that.
Yeah, what do you think? A little piggyback on Trump there, right? Which is like, I don't know if that's the right call right now.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if plastic is going to really shift the election either. That's something I would have saved for after, but who knows?
I feel like I'm with you on that. And remember, we talked to Vicky about this last week, where he said you want to, like, if you're seeing parallels between a Poilievre campaign or communication tendencies, like talking about crowd sizes, and it appears to be similar to Donald Trump, you know, the critics of Poilievre will draw direct lines between the two and say it's very Trumpish. And then on the other hand, pundits, you want to say, well, is that a fair comparison? Or maybe is Pierre Poilievre or the conservative strategists, are they tapping into frustration people have with, you know, I mean, I know people are going to roll their eyes here, but like with paper straws, it may seem like a small thing. I know people in the chat will say boo-hoo, but like some people are really super pissed off about
this
paper
is
straws,
my election,
and that is going to be their ballot box
this
question.
Is my ballot box question.
This guy's going to get rid of those shitty paper straws. He's got my vote.
I love it.
You can let us know what you think anytime to talk at RyanJespersen.com. Alberta's former deputy premier and obviously high-profile cabinet minister Thomas Lukaszuk coming up in less than 2 minutes. First, you know that Tim Cartmel wants to be the next mayor of Edmonton, and his campaign pointing out that Edmonton is at a crossroads, and that's a fact. You can check out what they're doing at timcartmel.ca. The question is, Edmonton going to keep doing what it's doing or start trying to build better? On May 1st, the Cartmel campaign is hosting the Capital Conversation. I'm going to be there up on stage for this hour-long event with mayoral candidate Cartmel. He's going to talk to you about his plan for smarter spending, safer streets, and leadership that puts people first. You're going to say, well, how are you going to do it? You want to know how he's going to do it? Well, he's going to tell you. Come here for yourself at the Capital Conversation. It's going to sell out if it hasn't already. You can get your tickets right now at timcartmel.ca/Capital Convo. Our friends at North Road Investment Council, online at northroadic.com, are offering an hourly fee advisory service, which is a great kind of a low-risk way to get to know them, get to check out their services, see how they operate, figure out their entire ethos, right? In Canada, it's typical for investment advice and financial planning advice to be delivered through a bank or a bank-owned brokerage firm, but the team at North Road wants to give successful savers and successful investors a chance to experience wealth management advice on a platform of true independence. Through the support of professionals with CFP and CFA designations, your financial plan will be delivered in connection to an hourly fee, not from commissions paid from investment products. Put the power back in your pocket with solid advice and counsel from the team at North Road Investment Council. They're at northroadic.com. And our friends at Friesen Brothers, it's a huge year for them. 2025 celebrating 70 years, still family owned, which is remarkable. Since 1955, Friesen Brothers has proudly served Alberta, delivering fresh, local, and high-quality products to families across the province. This amazing milestone reflecting their dedication to quality and the trust of Albertans over the years. On behalf of Friesen Brothers, thank you, Real Talkers, for being part of this remarkable journey. Stay tuned. There's going to be a ton to celebrate through the year. You can always check them out online at friesen.com. I knew that we're going to get some plastic straw, paper straw comments here.
Are they in there?
Chantel says, if paper straws are your ballot box question, you are a simpleton. Chantel, that is one of the best and most underused words in planet Earth. Simpleton. It's not harsh, but it definitely bites. Nobody wants to be called a simpleton.
No.
How about this tweet over the weekend? This caught my eye. Thomas Lukaszuk, former deputy premier of Alberta, letting everybody know that he filed a Law Society conduct complaint against Alberta's Justice Minister and lawyer Matthew Lindsay. Lukaszuk says both, in my opinion, engaged in criminal obstruction of justice on the private surgery contracting file. Lukaszuk going on to say that he will be laying information with the RCMP. Thomas, kind enough to join us on this Tuesday morning. It's nice to see your face. What prompted this? This is a pretty big deal.
Good morning, Ryan. Great to hear from you. A long time no hear.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it. Frankly, it should have been the opposition, I think. But at the end of the day, it was abundantly obvious to me that that there is what I perceive to be misconduct and possible criminal obstruction of justice. Let the RCMP and courts decide that. But we are starting to normalize things that a few years ago, or frankly in many other parts of the world, would be unthinkable. And maybe we've become so used to it in Alberta that we don't even file these complaints anymore. But this is a matter that really underpins our perception of justice, affects our labor force in Alberta Health, puts them in a very difficult position, and it's a matter of rudimentary fairness, what government can and cannot do. And what I'm seeing happening right now on this file with Alberta Health Services and Alberta Health with the procurement contracts and how they're handling it, it's very authoritarian from my perspective. So I filed these complaints. I believe them to be meritorious. I actually had them reviewed by criminal lawyers. They concur. So let the process take its place and let's have it reviewed.
So in like super duper layperson's terms, my understanding of this and what has been alleged is that the Alberta government basically did favors for its friends, for private surgery contractors, paying them more than what those surgeries would go for under the typical public delivery system. Like, that's the super duper general impression I have of the story. But take us into this, what you know, what you believe to be true, and what sort of puts you over the edge in maybe, like you said, stepping over even what the official opposition has done to this point.
Well, what I know is what you know and what all Albertans know if we follow the press and actually if we follow what the Premier and the Minister of Justice say, and I simply put it all together. So what in essence appears to have happened is that there were issues with procurement, with government giving out contracts for private surgeries, fake Tylenol, and the list goes on, which now adds up to about $600 million. And the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Alberta Health Services, which is the delivery arm of Alberta Healthcare, has started to investigate because she herself saw that there is something wrong going on, and she was directed by the minister to give certain contracts to certain groups. She saw it as being wrong, so she started investigating it, and then she gets fired by the minister, by government of Alberta. The board of directors, which oversees the delivery of healthcare, also, it appears, thought that there is something wrong. They even advised the CEO to file a complaint with RCMP, so they get fired too. So we end up in a situation where the minister directly now controls all of Alberta Health and Alberta Health Services because there is no board, there is no CEO. The CEO files a lawsuit for wrongful dismissal. That's before the courts. The Auditor General decides to review this file and will be calling in witnesses. It could be hundreds of Alberta healthcare workers. Danielle Smith says that she wants to be transparent, so she hires a retired judge from Manitoba to review this issue, but gives him a very limited scope of what he can and cannot look at. And now RCMP is investigating it. So the government, against which employees potentially would be filing evidence because they're witnesses and could say, look, this went wrong, that went wrong, hired a lawyer and sent a memo to thousands of Alberta healthcare employees that says, if you get called in by the Auditor General to testify, you first have to go to this lawyer. But this lawyer is hired by the government of Alberta. So basically it says, if you're going to testify against us, first go and see our lawyer who will advise you of your rights. You don't have to be a legal expert to know that there is just something patently wrong with that. Why would you be going to the lawyer that's hired by the person against whom you're going to testify? But now this lawyer, since he will be advising these workers on their rights, one of their rights is that they don't have to cooperate with RCMP like none of us do. You don't have to testify to police. It's your right to remain silent. So they probably will be advised of that. So that will also make the RCMP investigation that much more difficult. Danielle Smith and the Minister of Justice say that they cleared that with the Auditor General. The Auditor General says he knows nothing about it. There's just no way the Auditor General would clear a process where witnesses that he's calling in would first consult with the lawyer of the person whom he's investigating. So we have a situation where, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, the lawyer is in conflict because at the same time as he is retained by government, he is advising employees who potentially will be testifying against the government. And the Minister of Justice actually not only ought to have known and knew about all this, he actually in the media is defending this process. So we have a situation where there definitely is a perception of conflict, but it also may be criminal obstruction of justice because this will interfere now with the Auditor General's and RCMP's ability to properly investigate this file.
Can you tell us what you're telling the RCMP that the RCMP doesn't already know?
Well, the RCMP may know about it, but we need to lay complaints to focus them on that. RCMP is actually investigating what we would call white-collar crime. If there have been favors for contracts that were given away to private individuals by government of Alberta, and was anybody benefiting from it? Was there proper process being followed? What I'm getting the RCMP focused on, in addition to this, is whether this investigation that they are conducting and the Auditor General is conducting is being in any way hindered by government of Alberta and their lawyers so that they can't get to the bottom of it.
So, by the way, Kathy is in our live chat, powered by Park Power, expecting you to be hit with a slap suit, kind of the legal way of trying to get somebody to basically sit down and shut up. Is that something you're prepared for or expecting?
Well, those things happen, and there are ways to deal with them. I am not making any accusations. I'm filing a complaint as a citizen of Alberta, as any one of us can do. And then there is a process that will either vindicate the lawyers involved or not. But the fact is that, any one of us can file a complaint to the Law Society or file a complaint to our CMP without having to fear of a slap lawsuit. If that was the case, we could never report what we perceive to be a crime or what we perceive to be a conflict.
Thomas, we got Super Chat Ken in here, and he's sort of digging into this policy, and he's saying that maybe I'm not even doing a good enough job of describing exactly the steps that the government has taken here. But he says the policy also states that either ministerial staff or government lawyers are to be present during questioning. He says the government is actively trying to intimidate staff not to give open testimony. Do you think that's accurate? And if so, based on your you were an MLA for like 14 years, wasn't it? Almost 15 years. Like, have you seen?
Correct.
What would you compare this to? Have you seen something like this before?
It's not comparable. This has never happened. And Alberta Health Services employees and Alberta Health employees must know that they do not need a lawyer and they do not need to consult with any lawyer. They're just witnesses. And if they have information about the fact that their employer has done something wrong, and that applies to any employees of Alberta government, they can freely go to the Auditor General or to our CMP and report that. They're not accused of anything. They're just witnesses. But if they feel that they need legal advice or a lawyer or someone to be present with them, they can retain their own lawyer. They can go to their union and have a lawyer appointed for them. But it simply is, I think, obvious to everyone that you would not want to get advice from a lawyer who is retained by the very person against whom you're going to lay information or testify.
Gilles says the UCP has done the best they can to make the cover-up worse than the actual scandal. Says had they admitted that they're paying 3 times more to somebody who gave them healthy gifts, Albertans may not have cared. You kind of had a front row seat to to the demise of Alberta Premier Alison Redford. You were her deputy premier. You watched all that, and a big part of how the public sentiment, or why the public sentiment turned, and the party's sentiment, for that matter, caucus sentiment turned, was that sense of entitlement. Obviously, the Sky Palace and the flight manifests and everything else. How would you compare the two scenarios, and what did you learn in that situation and since about disclosing to the public, about, as we might say on this show, keeping it real?
Well, the situation has changed dramatically. Not to say what Alison Redford did, with these flights, or with a flight to Nelson Mandela's funeral, which cost $10,000, was proper, although some would argue that it was. Now what we are seeing daily makes all that pale in comparison. We're talking about 60 to $70 million of fake Tylenol. We're talking about $600,000 of surgeries. We're talking about real money here. But somehow we have, as Albertans and Canadians, become immune to that. So we no longer react. We no longer file complaints. At that point in time, still in 2014, 2015, we found Alison Redford's behavior unacceptable, and properly so. But at this point in time, what Alison Redford did in her entire political career, this government appears to be doing in one day, and somehow it no longer shocks us anymore.
By the way, we've got somebody asking about the eagle over your shoulder, asking what that is. May I guess? My guess is it has something to do with Poland, and I know it's not the Polish flag. Is it the Polish? Is it the coat of arms? Maybe
it's the Polish coat of arms. It's a white eagle.
What do I win?
You got it.
Okay.
I don't know. A plate of pierogies.
A plate. I'll take it. As a matter, Johnny and I, we love it. I may be wrong, and if so, I apologize. But I'm pretty sure you are a practicing Catholic. No.
Well, I was raised in the Catholic tradition, but it's been a while since I've been to church.
Okay. May I ask you, just as a recovering Catholic then, or as someone with Catholic roots, for your thoughts on the passing of Pope Francis?
This always is a sad moment for Catholics, because he is the spiritual leader, and he's a head of a state, obviously Vatican. But I think that the biggest question is who will be the next pope, because we have noticed significant shifts in ideology and theology between popes, from John Paul II being probably one of the more conservative popes, through Benedict, who carried that conservative tradition, and now Francis, who really liberated the Catholic Church and even allowed for blessing of gay couples, and was moving in what I would consider to be the proper direction of the church. And now the big question is the church going to the cardinals, who will be in the conclave voting for the new pope, will they decide to reverse back to sort of the John Paul II era of conservatism, or will they carry on with the tradition of liberating the church and making it somewhat more progressive? So there are candidates for pope from both sides on that spectrum, and it will be interesting to see where the church decides to go.
Hey, thanks for making yourself available. Thanks for speaking candidly, per usual, and we'll look forward to having you back on the show, Thomas.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ryan.
You bet. You can follow Thomas Lukaszuk on X at Lukaszuk AB. That's where he let everybody know about filing that Law Society conduct complaint against Justice Minister Mickey Amery and lawyer Matthew Lindsay. In our live chat, Jay says the smell around this health fiasco is pungent. That's another good word. We're getting some good words in the chat today. This is when we boast that this is Canada's smartest and most informed talk audience.
Yeah.
We mean it. They prove it every single day.
They live up to it, Ryan, every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting to see these popping, these recurring comments, by the way, around Earth Day. Denis says, clean water is in jeopardy in southern Alberta due to coal mining. I see Don says you can't eat the fish in most Alberta lakes. Don, I don't know if that's the truth. I hope that's not the truth, but our next two guests are going to let you know exactly what they think about that, I'm sure. These are two people, two phenomenal researchers that are doing their best to save the planet. And on this Earth Day edition of Real Talk, in partnership with our friends at Athabasca University, we'll present that conversation in just a second. Jay in our live chat, by the way, as well, says there's no store that's going to bring back plastic bags. They've been banned. I mean, that was a municipal thing for the most part. Yeah. Some cities banning them well before others. I think Victoria was one of the first in Canada, if I remember correctly. Have you adjusted to no plastic bags? Like, do you have some reusable shopping bags in your vehicle at all times? Or?
Yes, but it's only because my partner forces me. I think I'm like everyone who forgets them all the time and then sometimes asks for paper, because paper you can still, as long as it doesn't get damaged by any liquids or anything, you can take that paper and put that into the recycling or into the proper bin or whatever. But I think with the plastics thing, like the shopping marts, the shopping centers already, the grocery stores, they're making more money off selling reusables than they ever did by giving away free plastic bags now. So their thoughts are not that they want to go back as well, right?
Yeah, I was telling you this. We've been doing a bit of a purge at home, trying to get organized. It's like anytime I talk about California closets, and I'm like, is the story of your spring decluttering and getting organized? I'm just talking
I did a
about
bit
me.
over the weekend
I'm
too.
talking about myself. Yeah. You want to know, like, one of the things we're trying to figure out what to do with them, and the irony. It's like we're trying to figure out what to do with like 150 reusable bags.
Yeah, because you found a big hoard of it, right?
But yeah, and I know that the obvious answer, people are going to write in. I already know the answer. The obvious answer is, Ryan, be more organized. Bring reusable bags with you at all times. Then you only have to have a few. But there's literally 150 of them that I don't want to throw them out.
Okay,
like, what's better or worse? Do we have to compare? It's all in the landfill. It's all going to be worse. I don't think that they biodegrade.
Well, I think they're supposed to. That's
reusable
the point.
Bags?
Yeah, I think the point is they're supposed to biodegrade.
But aren't they supposed to last forever so you can keep
They
using
last
them?
long, but they don't last as long as a plastic bag would if it went in the ocean. I don't know. I'll have to check right away. I'm not an expert.
Krabby
but
Chris.
I did a little flush of some stuff in my house too. And yes, I went in the basement and there was like a bucket full of like 30 to 40 reusable bags. I also, in a drawer at the back, found 15 masks from the COVID era.
Were they the good ones?
They were like all sorts of kinds. They were like the N92 or whatever, and then there were some cloth, and then there were someone with funny sayings on there, like COVID ruined everything around me, like Wu-Tang Clan cream. But I took them all out, and I was like, first of all, this is probably a biohazard. Second of all, like if this happens again, I'll probably buy new. So a lot of them were recyclable, I guess. So I tried to recycle most of them.
This is such a good point. We're going to award Johnny on the Real Talk
recycling COVID masks.
Two points to both Kathy and Tracy D, who have reminded me that I can donate my extra reusable bags to the food bank. Says they can.
That's a great.
That is a fantastic suggestion, and I will do that this week. Thank you very much. Tony says, I found it humorous. This has nothing to do with anything, but we should also shout out 420. Tony says, I found it humorous that 420 landed on Easter Sunday. Said, I saw the best meme of Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg in Easter bunny outfits. That from Tony. Tony, it was great to see you, by the way, at Arcadia on Thursday for our debate night watch party.
And you didn't early vote.
On the drive, I didn't. Man, I vote last minute. I vote.
You're the same as Vicky. So Vicky opened her show.
I'll show up at like 5:00 p.m.
Vicky opened her Party All the Time show. Go check out Party All the Time. New political podcast, amazing. With this exact statement. She said she enjoys the feeling of rushing at the end, and like her ballot is one of the last to be placed in the box. Yeah. Feels like there's more emphasis, like it means more that way. But,
and it just adds to the excitement.
Yeah. Well, I don't like waiting in lines. I got a sticker put on my door on Thursday that said, hey, I don't know if you know, but it was professional, but it didn't say it like that. But basically summarizing, saying, I don't know if you know, but 3 minutes from here, you can vote from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow. And what I did is at like 1 o'clock, I got in my car, I went over there, 2-3 minute drive, went in, walked right in. I think the whole thing inside was 6 minutes, voted, went home. The whole thing, I put it up on X. I said it was 12 to 13 minutes in total. So it was a very easy whole.
I'm proud of you, man.
But I wanted to mention this
because
we were talking about voting. And
can I just say, when you showed up here 3+ years ago, we had to have a team meeting to get you to stop saying, I know I don't know about politics. I know I don't. And
I still voted.
We had to have a team meeting and say, stop it. And I think it's fantastic that you give a shit. And I hope that more people give a shit this election.
Well, you got to vote.
Do you think we could hit 65, 70% voter turnout?
Perhaps.
This feels like me in high school aiming for 70%. Could we hit 70%? I don't know.
It's probably going to be around 60 again. But I did want to mention, we were talking about how the ballot is formed and how sometimes certain parties don't like that, it's alphabetical, because sometimes certain parties end up at the top and some at the bottom, and people are just mentally more likely to check the upper boxes than so in my riding, Gateway, the Liberal candidate was at the top.
Okay.
Jeremy, am I pronouncing this right? Hoofsloot?
No idea.
Okay. And then Tim Uppel was Conservative, so he was at the bottom. So I did notice that right on the ballot when I picked it up.
Based on surname. It would be based on surname. And that's why...
if it matters.
I think it's pretty interesting, and we got into this with Ken Bosenkool, Shannon Phillips on our Thursday episode of the show. That was our final one last week, where they were talking about, in Pierre Poilievre's riding, 91 names on the ballot. It's part of kind of an activist group. They want electoral reform. Everything that they're doing is legal. Pretty interesting. A bit of a publicity stunt. Interesting if it works. But Pierre Poilievre's, the surname P, it's way down on the ballot. A ballot with 91 names on it. So kind of an interesting story. I don't think that Pierre Poilievre's going to lose his riding. But nonetheless, how cool is this?
Did you see how many are in his riding?
91.
91? Sorry. I was looking at the screen.
No, we also need to remind people that a lot of times when I'm talking, you are flying the plane right now. This is like a 747.
Talking to the guests,
getting everybody lined up.
Yeah.
Horse Lake Ranch, how cool is this? Says, I just happened to be the first person to vote in my town. The very first. Says they got to inspect the ballot box and sign the tape that sealed the box. How cool is that? Shout out to Horse Lake Ranch for getting out there and voting. And I love the suggestion from Dwayne, by the way, in our live chat as well. I should remind you, powered by Park Power. If you're looking for your if you're looking basically to stretch your dollars and keep more money in your pocket, you can get exclusive discounts on internet, electricity, and natural gas by checking out parkpower.ca/Real Talk. Check that out. Dwayne says, Jespo, before you drop those bags off at the food bank, fill them with food. Dwayne, there are 150 of them, but I will make you this promise because I love the suggestion. I will fill one of them. How's that? I will fill it to the top, and we're proud to support Edmonton's Food Bank through the year. Happy to clarify, who is this? Someone in the live chat. I want to name you by name because I appreciate it. One of you said, Jespo, are you endorsing Tim Cartmel for Mayor of Edmonton? Real talk, I'm hired to host the event. I'm not endorsing anybody for Mayor of Edmonton, so that's the quick answer there. I appreciate the question. And I'll tell you what we'll do, because we've got a Real Talk roundtable set to go right now. It is Earth Day, and we want to get to this. These two brilliant researchers, we don't want to keep them waiting, because the longer we keep them, Johnny, the longer it's going to take to save planet Earth. So let's get to that interview. First, I want to remind you, and all this talk about California closets, we have invested in California closets in our place, and the return on that investment, we see it every single day. My wife, Carrie, has a beautiful walk-in closet. It's kind of one of the showpieces, to be honest. If and when we decide to sell the house, that's obviously a great investment. But then just on the practical side, the kids' puzzles and games in our entertainment center on the main floor, the TV, honestly, Johnny, it looked like a frat house before. The TV was stacked on top of a couple of, not milk cartons exactly, but as close as it gets to it. Now it all looks super pro. That was our vision, and we had a budget that was probably not the biggest one they've ever seen, but boy, did they ever work with it. 8 years later, looks just as good as the day it was installed. All of California Closet's installations guaranteed for life. This is a proudly Canadian-owned company. Everything they install manufactured right here in Alberta. You can book your free consultation. Talk to a designer today by visiting californiaclosets.ca. Our friends at UCAN Youth Services reminding you that they are working every single day with young people 12 to 17 through their Relentless Outreach program, and young adults 18 to 24 with their different ready-to-work programs. One of them called the Road to Work, which helps young people connect with construction opportunities, in particular road building. And then they've also got their Verto program. They partner with big employers like IKEA to help young folks that, maybe just need a bit of a break. They've got a ton of potential. They just need a bit of counsel. They just need a bit of direction. I've swung by UCAN in past and watched this team in action. It blows my mind. I hope you hear the enthusiasm in my voice. because we're seeing lives turned around. We're seeing opportunities created and young people transformed. And I'm not overstating anything. See for yourself on their website, ucan.ca. If you're an employer of entry-level jobs, if that's what you're in charge of in your workplace, reach out to UCAN. Have a quick conversation. There could be a perfect fit between you and UCAN Youth Services. Also want to let you know how excited I am to be partnering up with the Leduc, Nisku, Wetaskiwin Region Chamber on the 2025 Nisku Energy Show. This is an incredible opportunity to connect with industry leaders in all parts of the energy sector. As a hub for local innovation and collaboration, the Nisku Energy Show is going to highlight the expertise and advancements shaping Alberta's future. Explore the possibilities and excellence in the heart of Alberta. You can get your tickets today and learn more about it by visiting yourchamber.ca. All right, before we get to our panelists, I want to put a challenge to Real Talkers that are joining us live right now in the chat and, of course, streaming across 7 different platforms, including LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. On this Earth Day, let us know in the chat what you're doing. It could be a small step. You could say, I turned off all the lights in all the rooms in the house before I went to work today. A tangible step, something small, or maybe something big. Maybe you're installing solar panels this week. Something that you're doing to help the planet. Let's connect with 2 researchers here that are doing some heavy lifting, ensuring that the prairies in particular are restored after industry activity. Dr. Srijak Bhatnagar is an assistant professor in computational biology and microbial ecology at Athabasca University. His research group studies microbes associated with the impact of humans on the environment, like coal mining, microplastics, herbicides, and oil spills. Dr. Adriana Morrell is a researcher and faculty member at Lethbridge Polytechnic with more than 15 years of experience in soil science, microbial ecology, mycology, and plant physiology. Originally from Cuba, she moved to Canada in 2010 to complete her doctorate in soil science at the University of Saskatchewan, working with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. On this Earth Day, it is such a pleasure to welcome both of you to the show. Thank you for making time for us. Dr. Bhatnagar, you blew our minds a year ago on Earth Day with your talk on microplastics. Although I guess we had a bit of a pit in our stomachs as well, but what a wake-up call it was. We had to go back to the well, no pun intended. It's nice to see your face again. Why don't you talk to us, tee up this project that's brought the 2 of you together in collaboration?
I'm glad you remember me. And I'm glad to hear that you're still talking about plastics and plastic bags. And
we couldn't forget it
earlier. Right. So last time when I was on your show, we talked about microbial superheroes. And this time, I want to take you to a different MCU or microbial universe that is right below our feet in the soil. These are the microbes that are in the soil. They are helping the plants grow. They are fighting the diseases for the plants. They are helping provide water and nutrients for the plants. And this is what the microbial probiotics are, just like probiotics for us. So our project is using these microbial probiotics that are for plants and helping restore prairie grasslands.
So can we get a better understanding of when we talk about restoring prairie grasslands? What's Dr. Morrell? What's kind of the wake up call like for the average civilian that's not out in the field, that's not boots on the ground, that hears about industry activity like coal mining or whatever we're talking about when it comes to the energy industry? We hear about it in the news. We see it on TV, but we're not out there walking those miles. Can you give us a bit of a reality check?
Well, what happens is that, especially in these ecosystems, there is multiple species, plants and animals and sensitive species that are vital for the functioning of ecosystems. And disturbances to these ecosystems can actually have tremendous ripple effects on all of us. I mean, grasslands, which is the ecosystem that we're focusing on restoring at this time, they offer multiple services, from water quality services to pollution depletion. They also provide cultural services, heritage services, and tourism and recreation quality. So losing these particular systems will create tremendous problems. They also retain carbon in the soil, a tremendous amount of carbon when these plants and these soils are covered with when the plants are covering the soil. So vegetation and survival of these ecosystems is vital for the planet as we know it today. So any disturbances, not only coming from coal mining, but any anthropogenic disturbances, even environmental disturbances that can happen naturally, can have a tremendous effect on how this ecosystem function and offer the services that we expect from them.
Srijak, are we already seeing this? Like when you're out in the field, are we seeing evidence that the current way of doing things is not working? And I mean, I'm being dramatic here, or maybe I'm not. Are we on a road to ruin if nothing changes?
I wouldn't necessarily say they are not working, but what we're looking at is so far traditional restoration practices have overlooked these microbes that are in the soils that help the plant. And so by incorporating this one tiny minuscule microbial element, if you might, can we improve the restoration? Can we make it more successful? Can we reduce the cost for restoring these grasslands? And that's basically where we're focused at.
Adriana, why is this, pardon the question, don't roll your eyes, promise? Don't return fire with an insult, but I have to ask the question, why is it so important? Like, why are prairie grasslands so important? Can we establish that?
Yes. I mean, as I mentioned, grasslands, prairie in general, are hosting a diversity that goes from the organisms that you can see, birds, wildlife, but also microorganisms in the soil. When it comes to the microorganisms in the soil, which are the part that we focus on, they provide all kinds of services that we overlook. We're talking about nutrient retention in the soil. We're talking about nutrient mobilization in the soil for plants. So everything that grows above ground is because that microbial engine is actually turning these nutrients, these micronutrients, macronutrients, and releasing them to the plants for them to use. So without this diversity, we can't have really grasslands growing and working as we know them. Also, grasslands work as a filter for pollutants. So there is a lot of pollutants that can come from different sources, and grasslands and the plants and the microbes associated with those plants are able to filter them and somewhat retain them from progressing to other areas that could be sensitive too. So you can see how this can have so many environmental implications if we lose these ecosystems.
I over the weekend, I promise I'll bring my point back to where we're talking about, but I saw on Instagram somebody, big golf fan, was lucky enough to be at Augusta National for the Masters a while ago and reportedly caught there was a bit of a divot that sprayed up. I think it was one of Rory McIlroy's shots on 15, and they've taken this small little chunk, this small little divot, which I'm quite certain the team at Augusta National will be deploying the FBI, the DEA, whoever it is, to go get that back. I think if there's one golf course you can't take turf from, it's probably Augusta National in Georgia. But they're growing this. They're growing the divot on their patio, and they showed it, and it's thriving, super duper cool. You're growing 3 native grasses, right, in your lab, the rough fescue, the Idaho fescue, and the blue bunch wheatgrass. I know there's turf nerds like me that would be really interested to hear about this and what you're learning about these 3 specific grasses and maybe where the best fit might be. Can you take us into that?
Of course. So we are growing these grasses currently at the greenhouse in Lethbridge Polytechnic. And we focus on these ones just because they are locally abundant in this area. So they are the native species that are naturally abundant, and we want to restore what was there before. So these grasses, they have different needs, different sizes, different adaptation characteristics. Some of them are really tall and tolerant to harsh conditions like the blue bunch wheatgrass, but others like the Idaho fescue, it is a tiny plant and it's very small and it doesn't tolerate competition or shading very well. So having this plant coming back, it's of tremendous importance, and as you can see, it's hard for it to establish on its own. And also the rough fescue, I mean, the queen of grasses, we really need to pay attention to this grass as well. I also want to mention that these grasses are all very good for grazing. So they are grazing suitable grasses. They are palatable. So the implications of restoring native grasses like this not only translate to restoring grasslands, but also to provide benefits for ranchers and farmers that are looking into retaining beneficial grasses in their pastures.
Srijak, have you noticed? Oh, go ahead. You look like you want to say something.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, key thing I want to point out, golf lawns are very much a farm where you grow one type of grass. Prairie grasslands is a natural ecosystem with lots of dozens of different varieties of grasses. And in fact, one of the main grass we grow in our lawns here, Kentucky bluegrass, is an invasive species because when it releases out into the prairie grassland, it will compete with native grasses and may even replace it in places. Yeah.
I think, isn't it? It's interesting. Like this is just something that I don't think the average person thinks about. You know, like, you know what I mean? And I'm not, if anything, I want to pump up your work. I think it's incredibly important. But if you talk to people about like open pit coal mining and then you show like you say to people like they're lopping the tops off mountains and everybody just gets so pissed off, right? It doesn't matter which way you vote, doesn't matter which political party you support. You get pissed off when you see that happening, typically to mountains. And then more so maybe when you hear about selenium leaking into the water and those types of things. Oil spills piss people off. People get choked when they see the floating plastic islands in the oceans and all, the sea turtles that need to be rescued because this kind of stuff. But then when it comes to like prairie grasslands, I bet you, and we've talked to representatives from the Nature Conservancy of Canada about this before, Adriana, but I bet you a lot of people kind of figure that like maybe we kind of look over those geographical regions, those ecological regions. For whatever reason. Maybe it's just the way our brains are wired, or maybe it's just me and I'm way off. What do you think?
Well, I think there is an importance of providing vital energy, but there is also importance in exploring alternative sources of energy. I mean, we need energy as a culture, as a civilization, but at the same time, we have to be mindful of the collateral damage that some approaches can cause. And I believe most of the workers and industries in this particular realm are very aware and very eager to replace and collaborate in terms of basically restoring these areas. So restoration doesn't come only from practitioners that are involved in environmental processes. It also comes from the coal mining companies themselves doing some of this restoration work after they provide services. So the only issue is that sometimes, like in the case of our experimental sites, for example, the coal mine closed in 1919, and we're still seeing some of those effects up to the day in smaller areas. So we are focusing with our research in those areas that haven't restored with natural restoration approaches. They are just not as I would say as friendly for restoration. They are in sloped conditions. The erosion is really great. The soil is lost in those areas. So that's why we're hoping that with our microbial friends, we can give a bit of help to these particular sites to completely restore the whole site. But Nature Conservancy of Canada has done an excellent work at taking care of these properties surrounding leach collieries, and they have it pretty much almost back to their native, their natural expected recovery.
Pretty interesting stuff, this leach collieries. I only know because I looked it up. The coal mine abandoned, what was it, in like the 1900s? I know I'm making that sound like it was like way back in the 1900s, but you know what I mean. At least 25 years ago. But near Frank Slide off the Crow's Nest Highway, which obviously has been, when you're talking about, we talk about the eastern slopes, we talk about coal mining in Alberta. I mean, this is the heart of it. Hey, Srijak?
Yeah, so and I actually want to address the previous question a bit. I think people see prairie grasses or prairie grassland and they just think, okay, this is just a land there. But what I want people to think is that as an Albertan, it's our living legacy. These grasslands, even though we see them for miles and miles, they are doing a lot of important things for us, from harboring pollinators, which are important not just for the grassland, but also for our crops. There is a tremendous amount of bird species loss in the grasslands because of how the grasslands have been disturbed. And what I want people to think of is that we are a resource-rich province and we rely on these resources, but we also are proud and pride ourselves in sustainable development and use of these natural resources, and restoration is part of it. It's like going out in the nature and making sure, yes, we get to enjoy it, but we don't create some permanent issues there. We don't create any permanent destruction there. So whatever industrial development is to happen, it could be coal mining, it could be pipeline, it could be transmission line, it could be oil and gas or other industrial infrastructure. What it comes down to is after we are done with it, we want to make sure that we take it back to how we found it. Because as I said again, or that they are a living legacy. This is what Alberta is, and this is what we want to leave for future generations.
I'm just reading this comment here, by the way. How cool is this? We're talking a lot about feet on the ground. Most people listening to this will have their feet firmly planted, terra firma, that kind of idea. But how about this? We've asked our Real Talkers, what does your Earth Day look like? And as we speak, and living up to her handle in our Real Talk live chat, Cheryl outside lets us know she is currently on a kayak off the West Coast for Earth Day. She says, I'm listening to the show as she chases ferry waves. She's going after the big waves that the ferries leave for kayakers out there. How cool is that? A big shout out to Cheryl, who's streaming us live while she's on her kayak. I absolutely love that. We'll get to more of what Real Talkers are doing on this Earth Day in just a moment. If you're just joining us on the live stream, we're talking to Dr. Adriana Morrell out of Lethbridge Polytechnic, Dr. Srijak Bhatnagar out of Athabasca University. Adriana, let's ask you, and I want to ask both of you this question. A lot of the work that you're doing, I mean, kind of the entire premise of this is finding nature-based solutions for these environmental challenges. Is that a bigger trend? Is that the only way forward? Why are nature-based solutions so important?
I think most of the time the solution is right before our eyes. We just take time to see it and sometimes even overcomplicate things. In the case of what we're looking for, those nature-based solutions are microorganisms that are already present in this ecosystem. They are adapted. They have evolved with plants for millions of years and have brought plants to be the resilient organisms that they are. So specifically talking about our arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, these are symbionts. These are friends of plants that give nutrients and water to the plants. The plants, in return to this favor, they provide complex carbohydrates from their metabolism. So it's a relationship that has been established for millions of years and have helped plants to thrive on Earth in every ecosystem. So pretty much like over 80% of the plants in the planet form associations with mycorrhizal fungi. So using these organisms and harnessing the power that they have to help us restore these sites. We know they are present already. We know they exist in this ecosystem naturally, could give us the edge to allow these plants to return to those depleted sites.
Interesting comment here from Don, who says there's a reason why the Americans want Canada. It's the only clean piece left. I love that. Srijak, is there more attention on your work? Is there more of a focus on your work? Do you think as political tensions rise, or as stories like coal mining in the province? I mean, for a lot of people, and I alluded to this earlier, industry happens under our noses without us really paying attention. Unless you're driving past the refineries in Sherwood Park, or maybe you live in an area, shout out to Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, maybe down in the southern parts of the province, Crow's Nest Pass. You don't necessarily see it on an everyday basis. But as news coverage ramps up and as people's lawn signs talk about protecting watersheds and protecting parks, do you feel more of an interested or intense focus on the work that you're doing?
In the sense of intense focus, we all know the administration south of the border and what they think about environment and environmental protection. And I think we need to know that we live here and we are part of this environment. We are part of this ecosystem. So we also don't want to mess around and, well, pardon my French, crap everywhere where we actually live, right? And whatever happens south of the border, is there increased scrutiny? I think there is increased support now that we see how the research funding and how the political climate is happening south of the border. I expect our future federal government to continue supporting research like this so that we can make sure that we keep our land healthy and pristine even after we have done using it.
Interesting question here from Nick. I don't even know what this means. Doping peas? Are any gardeners in the house? Johnny, you a gardener?
Oh, I can answer
okay,
that.
Okay, so let me get the question out, and then you take it. So Nick says, is this similar to doping peas and other crops with microbes when planting in the garden?
Yes. So peas and soybean and all beans are actually a classic example of microbes helping the plants. Here, the reason we don't need to put nitrogen fertilizer for plants is because the peas form these symbioses. They form these relationships with the microbes in the soil that take the nitrogen out of the air and give it to the plant. So guess how much you can save on fertilizer. And I wouldn't necessarily call it doping because, if we don't provide it, the plant will still go looking for it. But what it does is it makes sure that you get more peas because the plant has a lot more nitrogen available. You get more beans if it's a bean plant. So yes, it is exactly the same. The only difference is in case of peas and beans, we normally give one type of bacteria. Here, we're giving a mix of bacteria and fungi. And this is where Adriana and I come together, where I'm a bacteria person and Adriana is a fungi person. And we both have our crazy affection for these two distinct microbes.
I love it. This show, we love, and by the way, when we say nerds and geeks, that's a compliment. We are nerds and geeks. We welcome nerds and geeks to the show every single week to nerd and geek out on what they're the nerdiest about, and that's what we're all about. So, and I would never refer to our esteemed audience as nerds and geeks, but there's a bunch in there as well that would recognize the complementary nature of such a title. Because some in here now that I have these experts here, people are tapping into this and want to ask important questions, like Anubis, who's wondering, is there an indigenous alternative that I could look to replace my own Kentucky bluegrass? Talking to landscapers, there is a real trend. A lot of people are looking to move away from that Kentucky bluegrass. Is there an alternative, or are you going to tell us it probably depends, obviously, on where you live, I guess, for starters?
Is there an alternative? Yes, there's always alternative to using local landscaping, where you plant your garden with local native grasses and local native shrubs and forbs. And so what you're basically doing is creating your mini prairie in your front lawn. And what it also helps is not just the pollinators that attract and supporting the local ecosystem, but these plants have been living here for tens of thousands of years. They have adapted for this environment. So guess what? They will also use and require less water than Kentucky bluegrass, which for Alberta, especially in southern Alberta, water is always an important issue.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously has to factor in. This is like a bit of the comment could come across the wrong way, but my family was on vacation. By the way, our first tropical vacation in 6 years, everybody. Okay, so before you grind my gears in the chat, but we were down in beautiful Cabo San Lucas a short time ago. Obviously a stunning landscape down there, but all desert, right? Really striking rock desert landscape. And then these golf courses are just unbelievable. I mean, these lush fairways, and you see the same thing in like Dubai and other parts of the world, probably parts of Alberta, to be fair, where it's just, it's the furthest thing away from natural. And full disclosure, I play those courses. I'm wowed by those courses. I follow Instagram accounts that feature all those courses. But at some point, I think, Adriana, safe to say, the human population in general is going to start taking a much closer look at the amount of water and the amount of resources that it takes to pull off projects and attractions like that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that looking into natural native grasses, as you mentioned before, like going back to the previous question of Srijak, might be a really interesting alternative. I mean, you're having something that is native to Alberta that is home, right? And you're using it in a way that is aesthetically pleasant. You might say, well, where do I get these grasses? Like, I haven't seen them in the usual nurseries around town. And there are actually specialized greenhouses that provide these services. One of our collaborators, Grumpy's Greenhouses in Beaver Mines, Alberta, they specialize in native plant species, not only grasses, but also forbs and shrubs. And they provide these plants as seed, or they can provide them also as the plant themselves, as plugs. So basically, there is a whole system near the Crossness Pass that provide this kind of services and grasses for those that could be interested. I thought I will mention because they have been great collaborators for us. Also, the Grassland Restoration Forum, big group of practitioners that can also guide and provide education and information on experiences and expertise on these kind of processes. So basically how to introduce grasses, how to use these grasses in different systems. And they have conferences and annual meetings and workshops, and they bring people to the field so that you can see how these grasses could be used and how we can introduce them in multiple ecosystems. So I think not only experience from our research, but also reaching out to all these different providers of services that can expand what we know could be really beneficial. I don't know if the golf course wants to reach out to them, but I think it will be.
My phone's gonna blow up right now.
Gardeners.
Yeah, all my golfing buddies are gonna say, "What the hell are you trying to accomplish right now? You're trying to shine this, intensify the scrutiny on our favorite sport." Srijak, go ahead.
If I may, there are a lot of golf courses in Southern California, also desert, and in Nevada, especially Southern Nevada, also desert. And these are very two distinct ways that we can look at and learn from in how to sustainably use water. Off the Colorado River, I think Las Vegas and Southern Nevada gets like single-digit % of water, and they are very efficient at recycling their water. They recycle their water like upwards of 90%. So they are able to maintain those golf courses while reducing their water footprint.
Very cool. This is something sincerely I want to start paying closer attention to, and I know this is resonating with the audience as well. Like M. Aitken in the chat is saying, like, indigenous grasses don't require irrigation, period, and that's going to have to be on more people's radar moving forward. This may be outside of your scope of expertise, or maybe not, but Horse Lake Ranch is wondering if either of you have an opinion on regenerative grazing to build soil health and sequester carbon. Regenerative grazing, obviously in an agricultural context for the most part, but not limited to. Do either of you have an opinion on that?
Well, I would say that using animals in a system has a tremendous benefit. I mean, you're getting not only the grazing part done and the control of invasives and undesirable plant species and weeds, but you are also introducing nutrients through the manure that these animals are living. So it kind of like ties that cycle of using all the components in a system and being able to use it the same way that it will happen naturally in nature. I think that's a big component of regenerative systems in general. It's just basically using every component to mimic what they will do in their natural environment. So using manure in this case as a source of nutrients, introducing animals that will locally graze the undesirable plant species. So I think in general, it's a good approach. However, depending on the type of animal, you might have some issues. Some animals are really careful and kind grazers, and some animals can graze to the roots of the plant and completely deplete a space from plants. So I think rotational grazing and knowing how you're doing and managing those areas, those pastures, and the animals can be beneficial. It just has to be done properly.
10-4. Great comment here from JJ. I love this. JJ says, I am finding this conversation fascinating. Says there are so many uniquely occurring ecosystems that once they're gone, we will never see them again. They're that unique. JJ says it is so critical to preserve what we can. I love the observation and maybe a perfect opportunity for us to ask both of you to give this audience a challenge today or something to think about as we make our way, not just through Earth Day. I saw somebody earlier that said, I think it was Alberta girl, said, my Earth Day is 365 days a year. Sharing what she's doing to eliminate or cut back on use of plastics, electricity, etc. But in the spirit of JJ's comment about, I love how they put it, uniquely occurring ecosystems. Adriana, what's one thing that we should walk with today and moving forward?
So for me, if I was going to give you a message is we're really fortunate to have today. The earth as it is today won't be the same in like 100 years from now. And the future generations might not be as lucky as we are to see the amount of clean water, the amount of green land, the forage for animals, the pastures, the forest in general that we have today. So the more we do to protect those resources, the air, the water, the land, the soil, and the vegetation and every creature in it, the better we will be for our children and grandchildren. Tying the loop is important. So generating less waste and giving a second life to things that you consider waste are essential. For example, composting, recycling, all those things that we think that are, we have the organics being and all that, but can you do something else? Like, can you have a small compost pile in your yard that you can incorporate to the garden later? Or do you know how to use microbial inoculants? Maybe they can help a lot for your garden and they are commercially available. You just have to look. So getting more information about ways that we can help, not only at the bigger scale, but also our small corner in the world, in our garden, in our home. I think that's the biggest thing. So getting information, getting education, and do what you can, your little bit of grain of sand in this bigger picture that is the future of all of us.
I love that. Srijak, to you?
Yeah, I would say for everyone, go out for a walk. Take a walk to any of these city parks or reserves that are around your town, your city, and just look at what we have and feel appreciated for it and think about how is it that I can make sure that this is there for our kids to enjoy. If you have kids who are able to walk, take them out, teach them about our land, our plants, and our environment, because this is where they will learn to also appreciate and they consciously think about our footprint and how we live on this planet. And if you're not able to go for a walk, oh boy, JJ, this is also for you. Read Grapes of Wrath, because guess what? Prairies, loss of prairies is what the whole premise is of that novel. The Great American Dust Bowl, because it's American, I'm going to put great in front of it. But the Dust Bowl, right? That was the loss of the prairies. Do we want that for ourselves? We know it has already happened. And it was only 100 years ago, right around the time the coal mining we're planning to restore is operational or had just become defunct. So learn about it so that we learn from the mistakes of others, we learn from the past, and we strive to do better. Yeah, and this Earth Day, I'm going to continue biking to work.
Continue biking to work. I like it. That was a nice, subtle little flex there. Continue.
Yes,
yeah. Nice little wink for everybody watching on YouTube. A shout out from Tony. She's watching us live right now on YouTube. She's kicked $5 into our super chat. Says, what a great panel. Says they get us thinking on how we can contribute to a greener space, even in our small little corner of the world. That's you, Adriana. We love that. Both of you. Thanks for making time for us. Dr. Adriana Morrell out of Lethbridge Polytechnic and Dr. Srijak Bhatnagar out of Athabasca University. A very happy Earth Day to the both of you. Thanks for the inspiration.
Happy Earth Day to you as well, Ryan. And thank you for having us on your show.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you also to our funders and everyone that has supported us throughout the years, NCC, our students. Thank you for them to do so much work for us as well, to our funders, Alberta Innovate, and our partners, and to the community for listening to this show. And Thank you, Ryan, for having us.
I love that. What a way to wrap it. Thanks to both of you. And of course, to the audience, if what you've heard here in the spirit of what Adriana just said has resonated with you and you know of somebody that would really benefit from hearing it, please do share the podcast, share the link to our YouTube episode. Of course, the more we know, remember Johnny, those commercials back in the day, the star would
The
go,
more you know.
The more you know, the star would go across the screen and it would remind you the things like don't put tinfoil in the microwave or no, I don't remember what it used to say. I don't remember actually any of the lessons that were taught in those commercials. I just remember how they ended.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. The more you know.
So we didn't learn anything.
Yeah, man. I feel like, when I get some interviews I'll go back and listen to again because I just feel like there was so much insight there, and including how we can apply it in our personal lives. I love this from Gilles in our live chat on this Earth Day edition of the show. Says Gilles has been gradually eliminating his lawn to edible landscapes and clover. I keep hearing more about clover as a drought-resistant ground cover. He says the so-called American Dream golf course lawn, the white picket fence, is hugely unsustainable. In particular in Alberta, he says so much water to sustain a lawn that very few people use. Says we need to get rid of front lawns. I will say, I grew up across the street from a guy that used to, the double mow, like the crosshatch pattern, like his front lawn would always look like a baseball outfield, and it was amazing. But I just don't know. I think fewer and fewer people, or let me reverse the take, more and more people, I think, are going to like the rock garden lawn, edible front. Like
100%.
I've seen people putting the big sort of like raised beds. They're planting. I mean, you can plant corn in your front, whatever it is, whatever you're going to grow, peas, carrots. People don't need me to go through all the things you can grow, but it just seems like that's more of a trend. I'm seeing it from more and more folks.
Yeah, a lot of people have like the well-maintained like cobblestone around, and then they'll have like, a fire pit or whatever you have in your backyard, a bench. And then, just a few patches of like fake grass there, which is fine because I remember when we were kids, like you'd look at everyone's all your neighbors, including you, had the sprinklers out all summer long. You're seeing that less and less now. People are understanding water conservation, but also the cost that it is to run sprinklers, and it's you see it less and less now. So I think it's a good idea.
I see a lot of people in the chat talking about how they've got their rain barrels and they may still be like watering their gardens and plants. I mean, obviously that's part of it. No one's going to just let their plants die, in particular if you're gardening. But even how are you harvesting rainwater and using it there? Blah Sheep says, I would love to see fewer cutting trees to put up solar panels. Are people really doing that? Says less fake grass, more plants, more trees planted would be a great start, 100%. Did you, where was it? Was it grade 4? Was it grade 1 or grade 4 when the kids get the little tree, the sprigs?
Oh, the little potter plant, yeah.
I remember in my my mom's parents' yard, my mom and her 2 sisters, they had their 3 trees and they had been planted obviously 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. As the time went on, it just grew into these beautiful, I think they're spruce trees.
It's a great
cool
lesson,
way to
I was so scared when they gave us those things and we had to take them home. I'm no green thumb. I'd rather take, like, when they say here's an egg and pretend it's a baby for like 2 weeks, I'd rather do that than take the plant home because I know the plant's gonna die. I could probably take care of the egg.
Remember when Spike was it Spike on Degrassi that had the egg and then knew that what was really coming? And yeah, you'd rather really have to care for the egg than the tree.
Well, I'm not very good at gardening. Like my partner is. She's very she keeps up on it. She's responsible. She's attentive to plants. She has cactuses and other things in our house that not cactuses because they don't need much attention, but other plants.
No, I killed a cactus.
And she sees them leaning and she'll put like stakes in them and knows what's going on with them. Me, I'm just I've always just thought you water them this many times a week and they're just supposed to go. But I see you around here as well. You see the plant, all these plants in here in our studio are real.
Most of them. And
Ryan runs around every morning and every Friday he puts them by the windows and every Monday he waters them. And it's just I watch you doing it and I'm like, I would never
Thank
want
you for
that.
noticing.
It's the one job I don't want in here.
Yeah, it's the one job you don't do in here.
It's a lot. It's like having a whole family.
Pretty much everything else, and it's all. And then we have like a It's like our palliative care section, which is over on the
outgoing.
Those are the plants that
So sad.
no longer work on camera. I remember Scott Roberts, a good friend of mine, who's been a friend for 25 years, and he's obviously a prominent evening news anchor in the Metro Edmonton region. He came in here for a Christmas party last year, and he goes, I mean, we're friends. He goes, "What kind of an idiot puts real plants in a TV studio?" I said, "This idiot."
These fake studio lights don't help? What? We thought they were like phosphorescent.
Well, it's, on camera, you want everything to be consistent all the time, and the plants in my care do not look consistent all the time. But I love it. I feel like it's just even, I don't know, I just feel like being in a room. I was in a restaurant the other day. I'm not going to name them because the service was great, the food was great, but it was
Chuck E. Cheese.
The plants were obviously fake.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like dollar store plants. I mean, you can get good-looking fake plants, but like dollar store plants. And it kind of like, I mean, I sound a little snobby here, but it kind of impacted my experience or my perception of the place. Just I like having real plants in a room.
But you can get good fake ones too. I don't like the really bad looking ones. Like, you can get good fake ones too, and there'll be reason for that too. Maybe they're saving water. Maybe they don't have time to take care of them or whatever. But
if I know anything about this audience, we're going to get some great emails to talk@ryanjespersen.com from people who know about what they're talking about. We're also going to have probably some entrepreneurs reaching out with plant care businesses, and they're going to tell us they can come in and
there's
look
a show on a local radio station here that's every Sunday, and it's just like, they're just like, "Hi, welcome to," and then it's like,
plant talk.
"Well, perennial season is around the corner, and I can't wait to dig my thumbs." into the front
I
garden."
love perennials.
And I listen to it, and I'm like,
coolest.
this is so much work, but God bless the people that do it.
Amen.
Speaking of, that was a great show. Great show for Earth Day. Congratulations, Ryan. I learned a lot, and same with you. There was a lot of information there, a lot of pictures and video that I've got to go back over. Speaking of the planet, too, maybe I should just bring this up. Ding on my email literally while we were doing the show. I took a look. I just got a carbon rebate. Boom.
Whoa! Congratulations, John. Now, unfortunately for the Liberals, you've already voted for the People's Party of Canada.
I voted
so it will not be influencing who you vote for.
Yeah.
What about this from Justin? It was great to meet Justin in person at our Real Talk Patrons Debate Night watch party. What an absolute beauty. He says, "I know some friends that are planting clover in place of grass. Says it's better for bees, 100% true, and it's better for soft, low maintenance." My wife's parents keep bees in outside Humboldt, Saskatchewan, and
that's another daunting task.
But the clover is like a big deal because you talk to, and I'm getting out of my depth. I'll limit this to one sentence. But people that keep bees and that actually produce and maybe even sell the honey or gift it away will tell you that like where the bees are and where the bees. What do you call it? What do bees do? What do they do with
pollinate?
No, but yeah, like the you know what I mean? Like,
what do bees do?
Well, they make honey,
I don't know. They buzz around. Little bumblebutts.
But where they are and the types of clover that they're interacting with will influence the flavor of the honey in a big way. Like beekeepers get super nerdy. Again, a compliment. Get super nerdy about the types of clover that they're with or that they're around. This conversation is made possible. What I love about, in particular, what Dr. Bhatnagar is reminding us is the incredible research that's happening at Athabasca University. That's Canada's open university. Now, for good reason. When you hear of Athabasca University, you may be thinking, the accredited online degrees and courses designed so we can complete our education whenever and wherever it works for us. We've reminded you that your only commute is to your device, and there are so many benefits, but I think one of the things we need to focus on more is the amazing research that's happening at Athabasca University, easily one of the top research universities in the entire country. You can learn more about their programs and courses, whatever you're interested in. Maybe it's this, protecting the planet. Maybe it's business. Maybe it's human resources. Whatever. AU has a fit for you with open undergrad programs, flexible grad programs. They've got a fantastic MBA there. They've got online courses plus on-demand professional development. You can learn more about it. Get the ball rolling on your application today at athabascau.ca. Our friends at Edmonton's Chamber of Commerce, they've got a big event coming up on the 8th of May, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I'll be hosting this. Their State of the City through the years has typically featured the sitting mayor in the city of Edmonton. Well, it's going to be a little bit different this year. Number one, of course, because the mayor has taken leave is seeking a seat. Will Amarjeet Sohi win on April 28th and return to federal politics? We'll see. But the Edmonton Chamber is reinventing their annual State of the City. As Edmonton increasingly faces complex challenges, the business community calling for more input, collaboration, and action. They're taking a new approach. So this year's State of the City 2025, presented by EPCOR, will feature the CEO of the Edmonton Chamber, that's Doug Griffiths, Kaylin Anderson with Build Edmonton Metro, Tim Shipton with OEG, Tracy Bednard with Explore Edmonton, and Edmonton's city manager, Eddie Robar. I'll be moderating what promises to be a candid and informative panel. Again, that's the 8th of May. You can get your tickets today by checking out edmontonchamber.com. Talking about restorative work, Complete Care Restoration's been doing what they do for more than 25 years, restoring properties impacted by wildfire, smoke damage, flooding, sewer backups, black mold, asbestos, you name it. But they also rebuild peace of mind. We say this firsthand, as in, people that have invested in their services. They built our studio. I've rarely seen a team consistently from top to bottom put such great attention to detail into what they do. They're ready to respond 24/7. They'll work directly with your insurance company, so you don't have to. You can check them out online at completecarerestoration.ca. Lauren says the birds and the bees are the only things happening at his house. Attaboy, Lauren. Jill says he had a whole bunch of bee homes, says he's concerned about honeybees, hasn't learned enough yet, says he doesn't want to spread disease. Interesting. Replaces bee homes every few years to keep clean. Do you know anybody that has a bat house on their property? This is another fascinating thing I've been learning a little bit more about. I know a lot of people, I think because of the imagery, like around Halloween and all that, you think of bats as kind of like these, flying kind of rodents, basically, flying mice, flying rats. I'm seeing more and more bat houses pop up. There's a couple in our neighborhoods, actually phenomenal for the ecosystem, for the environment, and really interesting animals bats are. You can learn more just by Googling it, obviously, but bat houses are another cool thing. I wonder if there's any real talkers out there with a bat house up on their property.
Maybe a bat
let
cave.
Us know what you think. Maybe a bat cave. You think he's listening? Got an email from Laurel over the weekend and wanted to read this in particular. Remember I talked about as we were walking our dog, and by the way, since my kids don't listen to the podcast, you want to know, or they're not allowed to anyway, at least when Dad's talking with Sailor Talk.
Oh, watch out. Kids are listening.
A big day in our household today, by the way.
They know how to use the Google machine.
We're bringing a new dog home.
Oh, my
Today's the day.
gosh.
Today's the day.
I can't believe you said this on.
I
told you about this time I was on air back in my radio days, and I was talking about a teacher who had told, here I go, because I know kids might be listening, who had told her grade 4 or grade 3 or grade 2 students that Santa Claus wasn't real in class, and she was going over how we all need.
The teacher was wrong.
Yes, of course, but it was such a great
story. The teacher wasn't a believer.
It's such a great story, and I wanted to tell it on the air, but by the end of it, I re-listened to the break after. I'm like, I pretty much
don't do it again. Don't do it again right now. What are you doing?
Hey, you know what
on earth are you doing? We are literally cutting this out of the podcast.
And the text just started rolling in on the radio.
Yeah,
they were like, "What are you doing right now? You're doing exactly what she did."
You're a non-belieber.
I'm not a non-believer, but the way I told the story made it sound like.
No. We do have real talkers with bat houses, by the way. Gilles, Heidi. Heidi says, we do have a bat house, says, I'm so scared of them, but I love biodiversity. What a cool, balanced perspective, Heidi. Absolutely love that. M. Aiken has one as well. I'm not surprised. Look at this. Wow. Very, very cool stuff. Emily says, my son loves a book series called Megabat. Says your boys probably would too. Emily, absolutely, I'll check that out. Speaking of megabats, did you hear the newest episode of Call Her Daddy with Wiz Khalifa?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was they kind of an interesting premise of the show. He walks in, and right as the podcast starts, right as they start recording, he just lights up like a big bat.
The amount of cannabis that guy consumes.
So she starts smoking with them, and she's like coughing as they're talking, whatever. But the interview gets more and more interesting. It gave me some ideas. Not saying, just saying.
He was in an interview one time, and somebody asked him like, "Yo, what's the average of joints or spliffs that you smoke a day?" And he was like, "Oh, I think around like 75, 80, and the guy's mouth just dropped. And so did I. I was like, what? And these are like, they're baseball bats. Like that's you got to take a month off and get your tolerance down.
What would be so you've got, Call Her Daddy has Wiz Khalifa smoking in studio. You had Joe Rogan with Elon Musk. That's probably one of the more famous, like smoking in studios.
He did not inhale.
What would be the Real Talk equivalent
of
a guest that we need to get here smoking in studio? I'm trying to think of who that would be.
I'm not sure.
Premier of Alberta, the next
great.
Prime Minister of Canada. You'd have to find
Well, we
somebody
have a
willing
guest
to do it.
tomorrow that we might be able to persuade.
You think he'd do it?
I think we might be able to persuade him.
You think Jagmeet Singh?
He's a hip guy.
You think he'd smoke a big spliff right here in
He's a hip
studio?
guy. He's
I don't
on
know,
TikTok.
dude.
Come on.
He might do anything right now to try to. They're going to try to save the seats that they've got.
Hey, live your life, man.
Right. So this is so the reason. What we do is like we swerve all over the place with our conversations on this show, but we always bring them back. And so the new puppy thing was. I was talking about walking our dogs in our neighborhood, and I said I saw this. I told the story last week. I said I saw this really intriguing, really interesting house that had NDP and Liberal lawn signs, the same house. And I can only assume, or I assumed at the time, that there are two people living in that house, both of voting age, and they're going to vote differently. And I wondered if maybe it kind of would hurt those relatively progressive candidates, the Liberal and NDP candidate in the riding, going, gosh, I mean, isn't that cool? But it also kind of feels like we're canceling each other out kind of thing. I was musing about this on the show. Well, Laurel writes in to talk@ryanjespersen.com, says, Jesper, I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I've been a daily listener ever since a colleague recommended it 6 months ago. Says, this is my first time writing in. Number one, shout out to you, Laurel. Number two, thanks to your colleague for recommending the show. She says, I think you may have shouted out my house on your episode last Wednesday. Says, I'm a resident in Edmonton Center, and I'm currently repping NDP and Liberal lawn signs in front of our Inglewood Northwest Mount infill. Laurel, it is quite likely this was your house. She says, why, you ask, would we have both signs? She says, not because two household members have two differing views, like you joked about. It's actually because I think that Tricia Estabrooks, the NDP candidate, she slaps. You know, she loves her. But she says, but I see the NDP vote here in Edmonton Center as a throwaway. She says, I'm firmly in camp ABC, anyone but conservative, which leaves me with the somewhat unknown Liberal candidate Eleanor Olszewski, who seems to have popped up overnight like a Spirit Halloween store. Great reference. Says, I saw the vacancy, or she saw the vacancy and moved right in as Randy Bosno was halfway out the door. Laurel says, I will vote Liberal strategically, but I had to give props to Tricia, the NDP candidate. Says, I'd love to see her take the win one day. That from your Edmonton Center neighbor, double sign, Laurel, to talk@ryanjespersen.com. Pretty interesting stuff. Now, the reason why we've got Jagmeet Singh available to join us in studio the next episode of the show is because he is appearing with Tricia Estabrooks and former Alberta Premier Rachel Notley at an Edmonton Center event, and I think that says a lot. Like, pay attention now. We're talking to you 6 days out from the federal election. Watch what ridings, watch what provinces the leaders are in. These are not the ones where they feel like the seats are safe. These are not the ones where there's the guarantees for the most part. For the most part, they're going to be spending their time and deploying all of their resources to the ridings where they're expecting really tight races. The ridings where it's super important for them to hold on to the seats they have, or maybe there's a shot at toppling the incumbent and taking one over. So if you have a question for Jagmeet Singh coming up on our next episode of the show, and we got a lot going on, by the way. I'm not wrapping quite yet, Johnny, but I do want to let everybody know. As a matter of fact, let's wrap. Let's do it. Everybody's got their days to get to, and we got to start prepping for tomorrow's show, so I'll let you know what's coming up on a star-studded edition of the show. This is coming up on Wednesday. This is, of course, going to be the 23rd of April. Jagmeet Singh joins us live in studio. Then we'll check in with our friends from Politico. They've been covering us across the country through this entire campaign. But get this as well. This is really, really neat. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Amazon labor union. You pay attention to this. This is a huge story, not just in the United States, but it had kind of a ripple effect around the world. We're going to talk to the founder of the Amazon labor union. Chris Smalls is going to be joining us in studio, an episode you won't want to miss.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer, John Hicks. General Manager, Katie Cook-Chivers. Account Coordinator, Lawrence Derlego. Human Resources, Lena Shepard. Website design, Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjespersen.com.